right, let's do a little sound check. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Sound check, test 1, 2. Sound check, test 1, 2. All right, looks like the sound is here. So, what's going on, guys? Thank you for taking time out to watch the live. I greatly appreciate it. But before I even start, let me make something clear. If you guys are actually reading the description and the title, I want to let you know that this is not theory for me. This isn't theory for me by far. This is actual field work. Now, a lot of you guys know that I have been working directly with April Rivas, the founder of the Narcissist Journals, building alongside her ecosystem from the Shadow Truth Tarot Shadow Work Reflective Journal. And this isn't from the outside looking in, but from inside the psychology, inside the patterns, and inside the behavior as well. And when you sit that close to human nature, when you watch people confront themselves in real time, you start to see something most marketers completely miss. They told us that narcissism was the enemy, the thing killing connection, the poison in our social feeds, the reason we couldn't look up from our phones. And to be honest with you, they were absolutely incorrect. Narcissism isn't killing marketing. It's becoming marketing. You see, back in 2025, the world's most successful brands aren't fighting your self-obsession. They're pretty much building it. They're engineering it, selling it right back to you. One customized bottle, one VIP experience, one smells like me candle at a time. And this is what I would like to call the mirror economy. And you've been living inside of it a hell of a lot longer than you think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be breaking down 7 unusual trends. But first, let me tell you why this matters more than any marketing conference you've ever attended. For decades, we believed narcissism was the domain of failed celebrities and toxic exes. Pathological, damaging, something to diagnose and treat. But somewhere between the first iPhone and like the billionth selfie, the ground shifted. Researchers started tracking something they called ordinary self-centeredness. And I'm not talking about the clinical disorder. I'm speaking on the everyday kind, the kind that makes you check your notifications before you check on your friend, the kind that makes you choose the restaurant with better lighting for your story. And here's what they found. It's not just growing. It's been a long-term upward trajectory for years. You see, marketing didn't cause this, but marketing, brilliant, amoral, endlessly adaptive marketing saw the wave coming. And instead of swimming against it, they built surfboards. So as you see on the screen here, the old playbook said, make them like you. The new playbook says, make them like themselves through you. Now, I want you to understand, and I need you to understand that this isn't about flattery, because flattery is cheap. This is about architecture, about constructing experiences where the consumer becomes both the protagonist and the product, where narcissism isn't a bug in the system, it's the operating system itself. So that brings us to the first chapter, or something I like to consider the reflective pool strategy. So picture this, Shanghai, May 2013. Coca-Cola launched what I would like to consider, or what people considered, something that shouldn't have worked whatsoever. They called it the Share It Coke campaign. They did something different in China, something that would become a template for the next decade of marketing. What they did was they offered bottles customized with names, not celebrity names, not brand slogans, but your name that's on your birth certificate. Or better yet, even the sentiment you wanted to express. Something along the lines of "to my best friend," "for the one I love," or better yet, "because I deserve this." So, on day one of this campaign that they were running, 300 bottles per hour were sold. By the time day four came around, 300 bottles per minute. Now, just take a step back and think about what just happened. Coca-Cola didn't sell you a beverage. They sold you a mirror with your reflection already printed on it. They turned a mass-produced identical product into something that felt singularly, narcissistically yours. Now, I wish I could pull up the audio snippet of the interview that was conducted by an executive, but I do have the quote here. And he states, "We stopped trying to be the hero of the story. We became the narrator. The consumer was always the protagonist." You see, this is what strategists now call the reflective pool approach. The brand doesn't seek validation for itself. It becomes the surface that validates you. Traditional marketing was, for lack of better terms, theatrical. The brand on stage, spotlight, pretty much demanding applause. The whole "look at me, love me, buy me." But now the new marketing is psychological. The brand is pretty much the therapist's couch, the supportive friend, the mirror that never lies, or rather never tells you anything you don't want to hear. So let's fast forward to 2009. AMC needs to promote season 3 of Mad Men. Pretty sure you guys heard of the show. A show about advertising. Ironically enough, their solution was pretty much don't show them Don Draper. Show them themselves. So what they did was they built a tool. Mad Men yourself. Upload your photo and you become a 1960s style avatar. Sharp suit, cigarette was optional. The perfect you filtered through the perfect era. 700,000 avatars in 3 weeks. The season premiere itself, 4 million viewers, a 273% increase. 273%. But here's the uncomfortable question behind this. What were those 700,000 people really creating? A fun avatar or a narcissistic fantasy of themselves in a more elegant, more powerful, more desirable form. You see, the campaign didn't sell the show. What it did was it sold you the idea in the show. You as the creative director, you as the icon, you as the main character. Every avatar economy since then follows this template. Everything from Bitmoji, Memoji, Meta's legless horrors. They're not communication tools any longer. They're narcissism engines now. Ways to insert your idealized self into every interaction. So in other words, the technology changes, but the psychology doesn't. So we don't want to be seen. We want to be seen as we see ourselves. So let's get back to those bottles, right? The real genius wasn't the customization. It was a social performance built into it. When you bought a bottle with your name on it, right? You didn't just drink it. You photographed it. You shared it. You performed your own specialness for an audience. The product became a prop in your personal theater. Coca-Cola didn't pay for those millions of impressions. You did, willingly, eagerly, because they weren't Coca-Cola's ads anymore. They were yours. And that brings us to the anti-narcissism rebellion. It's pretty much like a paradox of rejection, for lack of better terms. So now, if you're paying attention, something, a contradiction, right? If narcissism itself is the winning strategy, why would any brand deliberately reject it? So let's back to 2004. Starbucks launched the Way I See It campaign. Now, on the surface, it sounds like typical corporate branding, right? But if you actually look closer, the campaign printed poetry, they printed quotes, and they printed wisdom on their cups. It wasn't their logo, it wasn't their slogan, not their "we're so great" messaging. What they did was they removed the I entirely. No corporate narcissism, no self-congratulation, just words, thoughts, ideas that existed separate from the brand's ego. Now, there was a psychologist, and I believe they stated that it wasn't non-narcissistic design. What they did was they forced themselves into innovative storytelling because they couldn't fall back on the whole "look at us," right? And I believe this is what surprised everyone. It worked better. Not immediately, it didn't have to go viral, so not virally, but deeply, emotionally. The kind of connection that lasts longer than the trending hashtag, right? So research would later confirm what Starbucks stumbled into. Narcissism of followers quickly. It's magnetic, charismatic, it's even impossible to fucking ignore, but it lacks retention power, right? Pretty much like a firework. It's brilliant when it first goes off, and after the smoke settles, it's completely gone. Emotional intelligence, empathy, the ability to make someone else feel like the protagonist, that is what builds communities. That is what builds loyalty. That builds brands that survives for fucking decades. So now we have two competing truths, both verified by data, both successful in market, right? So the first truth is narcissism sells. The more you let people perform their idealized selves, the more they'll engage, share, and buy. The second truth is anti-narcissism. And anti-narcissism sells. The more you step back and create genuine emotional space for the consumer, the deeper they will commit. So by now, I'm pretty sure you're asking a question, right? How do they? Well, from what I've been researching, it looks like the answer would have to be timing. You see, narcissism is the acquisition. Narcissism is what gets the attention. Narcissism is what gets people in. But anti-narcissism, is what keeps the people. Anti-narcissism, I don't know why I keep doing that. But that is the retention. So picture it being narcissism is the first date. It's dazzling, it's performative, it's all about presentation. But anti-narcissism is the marriage. Quiet, consistent, built on actually showing the fuck up, right? For those who are married, I know you know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Yet and still, smart brands do both of these. They use narcissistic hooks to get you in the door. They then switch to empathetic, non-narcissistic modes to keep you. But this is what makes this trend that's going on right now highly unusual. Some brands are going all in on anti-narcissism as their entire identity, not as a phase, but as a permanent rebellion against mirror economy. So look at Patagonia's "Don't Buy This Jacket" campaign, right? Or Dove's "Real Beauty Sketches." They're not just rejecting narcissism; they're positioning themselves as the antidote to it. And I know a lot of people are still, anti-Dove for their little campaign they had a few years ago, but people are still finding Dove itself, to be the antidote. Because when you think about it, everyone else is trying to make you feel special. Dove and Patagonia, Starbucks, they're trying to make you feel like you're enough. It's still marketing, it's still manipulation, but it's manipulation that acknowledges something crucial. Or let me not say manipulation, let me say persuasion instead. It's still persuasion. So, like I was saying, it's persuasion that acknowledges something crucial. Narcissism is fucking exhausting. Performing your idealized self 24/7 is a full time job. And some consumers are desperate for permission to actually stop. So, if you're a consumer, I'm pretty sure you've said something along the lines of, I just want to buy something without becoming a brand ambassador for it. Or every product now wants me to tell a story about myself. Sometimes I just want coffee. Or better yet, the brands I trust most, they don't demand my attention. They're earning it by getting out of the fucking way. You see, this is the anti-narcissism opportunity. As more brands power the economy, every product customizable, every experience Instagrammable, every interaction a chance for self-performance, is what the brands that offer refuge become rare. They're becoming more valuable, becoming more magnetic in their own quiet way. But, and this is a but because they are still selling you something. They're just selling you the way, how can I put this? They're just selling you the feeling of not being told to, which is, in its own way, another form of narcissistic satisfaction. The satisfaction of being too sophisticated for obvious marketing, right? So the mirror economy has mirrors within mirrors when you think about it. So let's go on ahead and move on to something I like to call the vanity industrial complex, or the content narcissism engine, right? So yeah, let's talk about the factory, the actual machinery that turns narcissism into engagement, and engagement into influence, influence into income. So as you see here on the screen, right, researchers have spent years studying the language of narcissism on Instagram. And I'm not talking about the obvious stuff, but the subtle patterns, the linguistic footprints. And what they found is a playbook, a formula. Narcissistic content creators don't just post differently, they write differently. They even use emojis differently. They engage differently. So instead of using the first person pronoun, I, me, my, occasionally, they use them strategically. And research shows higher narcissism correlates with more self referential language. Not the whole "this sunset is beautiful," but "I found this beautiful sunset." The word exists in relation to them. Uh, Positive effect language, right? Pretty much something of everything is amazing, incredible, blessed, grateful. But the gratitude is performative. Gratitude for how great their life is and not for others in it. So even the whole idealization of using the self-congratulatory tone. Uh, let me think. I'm so proud of myself for dot dot dot. I worked so hard on dot dot dot. I finally achieved dot dot dot. The subtext, right, is pretty much saying I'm exceptional. Recognize my exceptionality. And then you have the emoji strategy. Strategic deployment, not random. And research shows narcissistic users employ emojis as emotional punctuation marks, amplifying their own self-presentation. Let me put this on Do Not Disturb real quick because I hear my phone keep beeping in the background. So, in other words, they're using the perfect face, the crown, the fire, a visual shorthand, pretty much saying, "Hey, I'm special." Pretty much, a narcissist will go along the lines and say something. So grateful for this incredible opportunity to share my journey with all of you, amazing, right? Use prayer hands emojis with the stars right next to it. Been working on finally seeing the results. Flex emoji, fire emoji. Or better yet, even saying, remember, you're the main character in your own story. Using the crown and the star, a shooting star right after it, right? So what they're doing is you count the first person reference. You count the self-congratulation. Count the emojis amplifying the self. You see, this isn't communication. It's architecture. Building a temple to the self, one post at a fucking time. And this is where I believe what makes this trend unusual. It's not just that narcissists post that way. It's that this is the way of posting which works. Post combining flattering images, emotionally captions, and strategic emoji use receive a hell of a lot more engagement, likes, comments, and shares. And the algorithm learns this. The algorithm rewards this. The algorithm creates feedback loops that trains every single person, whether they're narcissistic or not, to adapt narcissistic posting styles. You see about your psychology. It cares about the engagement. And narcissism engages. So the platform becomes a narcissism engine, slowly converting normal users into performers of their own idealized selves. And this is what you would call the vanity industrial complex. This is not a conspiracy. This is an emergent property. The sum of millions of individual optimization of decisions, all pointing the same damn direction. And now it's a fucking economy. The narcissistic aesthetic, as researchers literally call it, right, is pretty much now a skill set. You can learn it, you can sell it, you can teach courses on it, how to brand, how to show up authentically, how to tell your story. Every single and each one of these courses at their core is teaching performative narcissism. How to make your life look like a movie. How to make your struggles look like heroes' journeys. How to make it look like an aesthetic fucking experience. So, not too long ago, right, I had spoke to a creator, a UGC creator, right? And they told me that they started posting because that they loved cooking. And at some point, after they began their whole entrepreneur journey, they then began to spend 80% of their time managing how he looked while cooking. So in other words, the food to them became secondary. The importance of being someone who cooks beautifully is what became the fucking product. And when you think about it, this isn't judgment. This is what some people will call a description. Because when you think about it, the creator economy runs on narcissism, because narcissism is the most efficient fuel for attention, and attention is currency. And again, here's the unusual trend that most smart marketers are watching. The aesthetic is becoming so ubiquitous, inevitable. Not inevitable, invisible, excuse me. When you think about it, when everyone is the main character, no one is. When everyone's story is a hero's journey, no one is a hero in their journey. And that brings us to hyper-personalized narcissism. Some would call it the extreme personalization and the VIP economy. This is where we enter the end game, right? The means to an end. The logical conclusion of the mirror economy. If reflecting the consumer is good, what if the reflection could be perfect? What if the brand can make you feel not just special, but singular? You see, loyalty programs aren't new. Airlines figured this shit out decade. Something shifted around 2020, right when COVID had hit. The program stopped being about rewards and started being about recognition. It's not about the you've flown enough miles for a free ticket, but it became the we've noticed you, we know you, and we prepared this experience specifically for you. Take for consideration Nordstrom's personal stylists, right? They don't just pick clothes. They build wardrobes around your, I wish you guys can see the air quotations here, but your personal brand. Disney VIP guides don't just skip lines anymore. What they do is they craft narratives where you're honored, where you're the honored guest, not the paying customer anymore. I mean, shit, now you even have high-end retailers now offering you dress sharper consultations, private after-hour shopping, and pretty much bespoke every fucking thing, right? And the research calls this the VIP experiences, but the psychology behind this is pure fucking narcissism. The belief that you are different, better, deserving of treatment others don't receive. And this is where we come into the uncomfortable economic reality driving this trend. Inequality isn't the social issue. Inequality, let me say this again. Inequality isn't just a social issue. It's the marketing opportunity now. You see, retailers are getting more value from fewer customers. The top 10% of spenders increasingly drive 50% up to what? 70% of revenue now. So the question becomes, how do you keep those high value customers feeling like high value people? And from my research, the answer: you build an entire economy on exclusivity, not just better service. In other words, a different reality, a parallel world where rules don't apply and the lines don't exist, and every fucking interaction confirms their specialness. I mean, shit, consider the evolution of the personal shopper, right? 20 years ago, I know some of you guys might be a little young to remember this, but some of you do. But 20 years ago, a service for the busy, right? But as of today, as of right now, as I'm speaking to you live, a narcissism curator, someone whose entire job is to understand your taste, your aesthetic, your self-image, and reinforce it with every selection. In other words, the clothes matter less than the feeling of being understood without explanation, of having your unspoken preferences anticipated, of being treated like the main character in a movie about shopping. And now technology enters. You have AI that says before you yourself even fucking knows them. Algorithms that customize not just products, but the entire experience. The logical endpoint of this is we're now in a world where every interaction is so perfectly tailored to your narcissistic needs that generic experiences become unbearable by comparison. And this is what researchers are calling the narcissism trap. Once you've experienced hyper personalized validation, mass market equality feels like a fucking insult to you. In other words, the VIP economy doesn't just serve narcissism, it cultivates dependency. And it brings us to an absurd extreme. It brings us to where narcissism becomes the product. So now we've reached the point, right, where the trend becomes self-aware, where narcissism isn't just the marketing strategy, it's the product itself, the entire value proposition. So let's go back about half a decade, right? January 2020. Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, right? Cost $75. One candle, and the name itself, this candle smells like my vagina. You know what it did? It sold out in an hour. They had to form a waiting list. The secondary market exploded for a fucking candle. So let's be clear what this was. Not a fragrance product, not a wellness tool, a narcissistic art object. The ultimate hyper-personalization, the literal scent of a specific famous person's body commodified, packaged, and sold. The candle didn't promise to make you smell like Gwyneth Paltrow, although what it did instead was it promised to let you own a piece of herself, to bring literal essence into your space, to participate, however distantly, in her narcissistic self mythology. There was a critic, and I have the quote here. I'm going to read it to you guys. It was a product that summed up what was happening inside people's heads around the world. The total collapse of boundaries between self and product, between person and brand, between identity and consumption. In other words, this is the extreme end of mirror economy, where personalization becomes so hyper-specific that it loops back into performance art. When narcissism becomes so naked that it requires what? Ironic distance to even consume it. So in other words, you can't seriously buy a candle that smells like Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina. But you can ironically buy it, or postmodernly buy it, or as cultural commentary buy it, right? You see, the narcissism is layered, self-referential, aware of its own absurdity. And since then, we've seen the template replicated. Celebrity DNA tests, personal microbiome analysis, bespoke supplements based on your unique biology, products that don't just serve you, but literally incorporate you. You see, the marketing language reveals the psychology. Unique to you, based on your DNA, or better yet, personalized at a at a molecular level. See, this is what you can consider narcissistic fantasy of total specifics, of being so special that even your biology requires bespoke solutions. But this is a weird and odd insight. These products often work less well than mass market alternatives. The personalization is theater. The science is questionable, and the efficiency or the efficacy is secondary, because what they're selling isn't performance, it's narcissistic satisfaction. The feeling of being treated as uniquely complex in a world of simple solutions, right? The validation of your biological specialness. What causes the future tension, right, is bringing us now into an arms race. This is where we approach the final unusual trend that will define the decade of marketing: the arms race between narcissistic and narcissism detection. Because the paradox here at the heart of the economy is that consumers are becoming more narcissistic, more demanding of personalized validation, but they're also becoming more sophisticated at detecting manipulation. In other words, the consumers can smell flattery. They know when personalized is just mail merge. They recognize when authentic is being performed. This narcissism that makes them vulnerable, let me use that word. This is the narcissism that makes them vulnerable and also makes them defensive at the same damn time. So brands as of right now are facing an impossible brief: make consumers feel genuinely special without appearing to try. Validate their narcissism without pandering to it. And personalize without being so fucking creepy. And this is what a lot of people can consider the detection threshold, right? As you see here on the screen. The line between effective narcissistic marketing and rejected fucking manipulation. And that line is moving consistently as consumers get smarter. And a lot of people, a lot of C-suite executives, founders, CEOs, C-suite execs can thank AI for that, if you ask me. So the next generation of marketing won't be more narcissistic, more invisible. AI that predicts your needs so accurately, it feels like intuition. Personalized, tell brand begins. Let me repeat that. It seems I lost connection here. So it seems that the experiences that we're going to have are going to seem so seamlessly personalized, you can't tell where you end and the brand fucking begins. This is what you call the ultimate mirror economy. A world where marketing is so effective at reflecting your narcissism back to you that you never notice the mirror at all. So I'm going ahead and close. I already have about 40 minutes here on the clock. I didn't mean to take up too much of you guys' time. I wasn't even really planning on going live today, right? But I want to reiterate this. We started with the contradiction. Narcissism as an enemy and an engine. Poison and the fuel. The thing killing connection and the thing driving the fucking economy that we live in today. The 7 trends that I just went over, the 7 trends that we've explored, don't resolve this contradiction. They live inside it. They live inside the reflective pool, the anti-narcissism rebellion, the vanity industrial complex, hyper personalized VIP economies, the absurd extreme, the detection arms race. You see, each is a different response to the same truth. We are hungry to see ourselves, hungry to be special, hungry for validation, and marketing, like I said before, ancient, amoral, endlessly adaptive, will always find ways to feed that hunger. The question isn't whether or not that these trends will continue, because they will. The question is whether we can see them, whether we can recognize the mirror when we're inside it. Because the final odd and unusual truth is this: the most successful narcissistic marketing makes you feel like you're not being marketed to at all. You feel as if you're just being seen. You feel as if, and you also as if you're finally and perfectly reflected. And maybe that's the most narcissistic belief of all, that somewhere out there, a brand really does get you, really does see the real you, really does exist to validate your specialness, not because it's profitable, but because you deserve it. You see, the mirror economy doesn't end. We just learn to see the frame. Well, I guess I'm going to go ahead and end this on out here. I'm Shelby Tyrone Clark Jr., and this has been the Mirror Economy. Thank you guys for listening. If you guys are watching from your laptop or your desktop, go on ahead, pull out your cellular device and scan that QR code that you see there in the top corner of your screen. It'll take you directly to my link tree. There you'll see a few things that I have going on. It may seem a little confusing, but once you go to the website and you know what you're looking for, you will find it there. If not, just reach out and contact me. I'm very easy to reach. Not only that, I want to give a special shout out to April Rivas, the founder of the Narcissist Journals, for inspiring me and helping me see this trend happening as of right now as I speak to you through this live. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, deuces. This your man Shelby. I'm out, and y'all be easy.
Oh,